You are listening to The Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at BrianCraigShow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. We got a lot to talk about. A lot is going on. And there's some big updates on the FTX guy, Bankman-Fried. Now, first off, I got a big question for you. Okay, what kind of guy has a hyphenated name? I just don't get that. And I didn't really think about it until today, Bankman-Fried. And I was looking through some articles about him. Everyone else seems to think that this is kind of a normal thing for a man to have a hyphenated name. That's usually what a woman does when she gets married and she hyphenates with her mate. But anyway.
I never understood that. I guess his parents,
I don't know.
His mom must keep her maiden name. So that's, I think, how that fits in. So all around it's weird.
It's all weird. But anyway, Bankman-Fried, the FTX guy, the indictment was released, today. And there's one major thing that was left out of the indictment. I'm going to get to that in just a moment, and I'm not going to tease that until the end, guys. I'll get to it in just a moment, but before I get to it, I just want to give a little background of what's going on here. I hate when I listen to a show and they have something in the title and they don't get to it until the last couple minutes. I don't do that, guys, okay? No. I just want you to know I don't do that, guys, but I do want to have a little bit of context. Bankman-Fried was scheduled to testify in front of the congressional committee looking into this FTX scandal today.
Right.
Now, he was going to do it by Zoom. He wasn't going to show up in person. I mean, imagine the nerve. He was setting the parameters, but he was going to do it by Zoom, but he was still going to do it. And the SEC, they went in, they indict him, and he gets arrested in the Bahamas yesterday, literally hours before he was going to testify in front of Congress.
Convenient.
Which is completely scandalous. And obviously the government went in and arrested him so that he will not testify in this committee. And this testimony from Bankman-Fried would be the most watched congressional testimony in any congressional hearing in many, many years. I would say the attention that Bankman-Fried would have gotten testifying, especially in person, but
they
even
don't want that
Zoom,
to happen.
Even if it was on Zoom, mostly in person, it would be the equivalent to like a Supreme Court hearing. You know, when they're trying to confirm a justice, everyone would be watching.
They don't want that to happen.
It would be live on television. And this FTX scandal is the largest financial scandal in the history of financial scandals. It's the biggest one ever.
Political.
So listen to this. This is in the Gateway Pundit. The SEC's indictment of FTX's Bankman-Fried has been released. Any mention of the amount of donations from FTX to politicians is omitted. And there's some
that tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, there's some things we know here about FTX and the politicians. One, I call him Bankman because, Bankman-Fried. Bankman-Fried is the second, and by the way, that's what's in the title, that they omitted the donations to the politicians. That was what was omitted. That's why they arrested him so he wouldn't testify, because they don't want that information discussed. And we know a few things about him with the politicians. One, he's the second largest donor to the Democrats. Number one is George Soros, who's like a terrible person. And the number two largest donor to the Democrats is Bankman-Fried. That's huge. And we know that he basically funded their entire midterm election machine, including funding Nancy Pelosi's Political Action Committee and the Fetterman campaign. Now, there are some Republicans who took money. A handful of Republicans. They're all never Trumpers. The most prominent one is Kevin McCarthy. And it was
that's pretty prominent.
Yeah, so
he wants to be Speaker of the House.
It's been reported in multiple sources that Kevin McCarthy took FTX money to use against Madison Cawthorn. So so he was arrested so he wouldn't testify, because this would have been carried on all the cable news everywhere, and the indictment leaves out this information on the amount of donations that he made to politicians. The other thing we know,
how does getting arrested keep you from testifying?
Because now you have rights. Now you have rights. You're lawyered up.
I see.
You have a right to remain silent. You're Mirandized. You don't have to talk. You're facing criminal prosecution. It gives he was arrested for the protection of the politicians.
Of course.
And the other thing we know is that Bankman-Fried with FTX was laundering money for the Democrats to fund their midterm election efforts. This one, it's been reported. Zelensky bought $100 million worth of FTX coin. $100 million. Now, keep in mind that $100 million is U.S. money, because we've given an unlimited. We basically given Zelensky the entire treasury. The treasury basically prints money just to give to Zelensky.
Yeah.
So you have Zelensky's country, which is what we're told is on the verge of collapse because of the Russian invasion, et cetera, et cetera. And during that time of crisis,
and now that Biden let the merchant of death go,
that's right.
God knows what else is going to happen now.
So during that crisis, when his country is on the verge of collapse, Zelensky buys $100 million as an investment in the riskiest type of investment out there, which is crypto with FTX. Yeah. And then after Zelensky bought $100 million worth of FTX coin using the U.S. taxpayers' money that we've given them, he took about there's the money differs by a few million here and there, but he took about $33 million of it and donated it to the Democrats in the midterm. So that's money laundering. The other $60 million or so that Zelensky bought in with taxpayer money, that's like his money laundering fee. So this hearing with him would have gotten into all of this stuff. And this is something that they did that's not going to be able to really be undone by the Republican MAGA Congress coming into January. Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to have an audit of all of the funding to Ukraine.
Let me ask you a question.
And that would get into this. But since he's lawyered up now, we're not going to get any of this information.
Do you think that her requesting that tip them off or no? But how much power does she have?
No, there's a lot of stories going around where you see Maxine Waters buddying up to him. He's the number 2 donor. So they know. So they don't want him talking.
How much power does she have in Congress, Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Right now, not very much. Not very much.
She's pretty new. I mean, she's only on her second term.
Yeah, but she's a big mouthpiece.
She's a high profile person.
She's high profile.
Which helps.
And she gets a lot of press, so she gets things out there.
Yeah.
But this arrest of Bankman-Fried is a scandal almost as big as his financial scandal, because he obviously was arrested by the government so that he couldn't talk. So there's a big cover-up going on here. And I'll tell you, the mainstream media, the mainstream media have been covering up the Twitter files. This Bankman, which had huge bombshells this week, which I went over yesterday on my YouTube channel, and also went through Twitter Files Part 5 on the radio this morning in great detail. So check out those shows, and you'll hear a complete breakdown. It's just huge. But this Bankman-Fried testimony would have been so big so far as news, the Twitter files would have been forgotten. The media are struggling right now to come up with excuses as to why they're not covering the Twitter files. The Bankman-Fried testimony in front of Congress would have been so big, no one would even be interested in the Twitter files, because he's just got so much to share.
Well, they're not going to let that happen. They're not going to. First of all, he's not an appealing person. I mean, he looks like Yahoo Serious.
That's why a lot of people would watch, Kathy, because he's so weird.
What I'm saying is,
yeah,
it would be like a freak show almost. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the things he'd say, it would be a disaster for them.
That's exciting.
So, well, sure. But so where it stands now, what has he been arrested for exactly?
All these different financial crimes.
Okay, and he's in the Bahamas.
He'll be extradited, then he'll come here, and then he'll have a lawyer, and he won't talk. Because you have a right to remain silent.
And they'll put him out on bail, and it'll go in.
He may not get bail, because he's such a flight risk. They're going to make him
sit in a jail cell for years and years.
They'll say that he's got means, even though he says he's only got $100,000.
They'll cut a deal.
Left.
He'll cut a deal. He'll pay a fine, and I think that'll be the end of it. And he won't testify about anything. They don't want this to go to court. They want this to be wrapped up nice and tidy. So he'll make a deal.
It's so amazing the political scandals that are going on. We find out about all this FBI work with Twitter, and now this big cover up with Bankman-Fried here with FTX. It just amazes me how much political scandal is done by the government out in the open.
I think there's always been scandals. Obviously, Vietnam, we can think of some big ones. JFK, there's always been scandals and things like this. But because of social media, we're more privy to what's going on. I mean, these were things that the new, back in the day when we were kids in the 60s, in the 70s and 80s, you had news at 6 o'clock every night. That's it. Like a half hour, maybe an hour of news. That's it. This was before CNN. And even in the early days of CNN, they still didn't cover too many politics. Now, people are so politically astute and interested in politics. And with social media, Twitter and all these other platforms, stories are getting out there that normally they would have been able to bury or hide or whatever, a few decades ago. So I think there's always been corruption and scandal, but the media would pick and choose what they would go with. Okay. Like the Bill Clinton, which was huge with Monica Lewinsky. That was too good to pass up. Even though the media loved Clinton because he was a liberal, that was a huge sex scandal, and they made so much money off of that they couldn't help themselves. I mean, they probably sold so many, and back then newspapers were still a big thing. They probably sold so many papers. This was before social media and all that stuff. So that was too good to pass up. But now it's a different thing. It's all about online, getting people to click and everything. And like I said, they can no longer hide a lot of these things. So they're just finding different ways to keep you from knowing about it.
Yeah. Well, listen, we know about it. It would have been a beautiful thing, but it didn't happen. And who knows? Yeah. This whole FTX scandal, even though it's the largest scandal ever, the other financial scandals get movies made about them. I'm not expecting a true FTX scandal movie because too many of the Washington politicians are involved in it.
They want this to go away.
That are in positions of power. And their big Hollywood donors and everything are not going to want to make a movie exposing all of their Washington friends.
I think they really miss Trump because Trump is still out there, but he's not on Twitter right now. He's being relatively silent, which I think is smart because I think it's better for him to kind of lay low sometimes so they can't use him as their distraction. And when he was really in the public eye and on Twitter and everything, it was always about him all the time. And a lot of times they would use these Trump stories to deflect and distract you off what was really going on. And, and they'd make up things and use him as their whipping boy to have a story to keep you interested in that. And everybody was interested in Trump, what he was doing. And when he lays low and he's not in the news, they really have to scramble to come up with things to talk about. And sometimes it forces them to discuss these things because they got nothing else and they got to fill a lot of time, 24 hours, 7 days a week on these TV networks. And if everybody's talking about something on Twitter, especially, it's really hard for them to ignore it because that makes them look irrelevant, like you've talked about. If there's something going on Twitter and they totally ignore it, that makes it look like they're not savvy to the news and they're not up on what's happening. And they don't want that either.
After the first break, I've got a story on Biden you've not heard yet that we're going to get to, and it's pretty frightening. But I wanted to throw something out completely unrelated, just going into the break. And you guys let me know in the comments on YouTube or some of the podcast platforms allow comments. You can let me know there, or you can send me an email or something. I was pretty excited. There was this Artemis 1 launch to the moon that just returned to the Earth. And I was pretty interested in this because I was curious to see the new pictures of the moon up close because it went to the moon and orbited the moon. And really the last time we got really good pictures of the moon or during the Apollo landings, and those are old technology. And I was looking at the photographs from Artemis 1 orbiting the moon today on YouTube, they're awful. You would get better pictures of the moon if they attached my iPhone 14 Pro to the satellite and flew it by the moon. And I'm not one of these we didn't go to the moon conspiracy people. I know a lot of people think we didn't go to the moon. And, But
you have watched a lot of documentaries.
I've watched a lot of documentaries on the moon landings. Yeah, I've watched a lot of documentaries
make a good case
on the moon landings of people that are skeptical of it. And a lot of people think that, I just forgot the name that of the director.
Kubrick.
Yeah, a lot of people think Stanley Kubrick filmed the moon landings and he did it, and that the movie 2001 A Space Odyssey was a ruse to film the moon landings, and
like Capricorn 1.
Well, that they filmed the moon landings on the weekends, and I actually met the actors from 2001: A Space Odyssey. The two guys, Keir, whatever is the main guy. I didn't, and the other one that was, and it was in the first episode of the original Star Trek series, Gary Lockwood. And I didn't think to ask them about that, but it didn't occur to me at the time.
I don't think they would tell you if they did.
But Gary Lockwood told me that when he was filming 2001: A Space Odyssey, they filmed it in Europe. They had every weekend off. That they didn't film ever on the weekends, and he had the weekends off, and he was partying. He'd get paid on Friday. And
is that unusual?
And he'd spend the whole weekend partying, and then be back on Monday filming. I don't know. I'm not. We didn't go to the moon conspiracy nut, although I've watched a lot of documentaries about it. But what I wanted to throw out there, which I know is unrelated to what we normally talk about, am I the only one that's disappointed in these new videos and photographs of the moon?
I haven't even seen them, so I'll have to take a peek.
They look like the stuff that were taken back in the 60s and 70s. I was really disappointed in it. And I'm not saying that the thing didn't go to the moon. I'm not saying that. But what kind of camera do they got on that?
What was the point of this mission? I mean, don't we have enough pictures of the moon? I mean,
they're planning.
Seems like they're planning on return. Seems like they're just going in circles at this point.
Well, literally, because they just orbit the rock and come home.
Well, exactly.
But they're talking about going back to the moon. They want to send people back to the moon in a couple years, and then have people there all the time. I don't know. It looks like
these guys fantasize about having space stations and
we
colonizing.
Have a space station.
No, I mean, but like where you live, like in 2001.
Oh, where like regular people go to and live.
And where people live and permanently and colonize. That's never going to happen. I mean, it's just not, they have no atmosphere that we can live in. That's the problem. They'd have to have some kind of structure where they create an atmosphere. Do you know the logistics of something like this? What it would cost and what it would take? It has not. We have the technology, as they say in $6 Million Man, but they're still not doing it. Well, there's a reason. Well, obviously, it's not really feasible.
This thing, I just say this, then we'll break and we'll get back into the politics when we get back. But I was so shocked. This morning, I pulled up the Artemis 1 video and photographs, and it was nothing. I could
take a look.
I could get better pictures standing in our backyard or standing on the roof with my iPhone of the moon. All right, listen, we're going to take a break, and when we get back, there's something big and new on Joe Biden that we're going to get into. All right, I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. We'll be back right after this.
Diamonds are certainly beautiful, but very expensive. You may not be able to afford diamonds, but you can afford the look with moissanite. Moissanite is a naturally occurring crystal that looks just like diamonds. Jewelry made from this mineral is stunning and very affordable. The Etsy shop, Moissanite Rings Co., that's all one word, on Etsy.com, sells handcrafted, amazing rings, earrings, bracelets, and much more. Shop their diamond wedding and engagement rings and bands. No one will know they are not real diamonds. You deserve better, economical, eco-friendly, and conflict-free fine moissanite diamond jewelry. Available at Moissanite Rings Co. on Etsy. That's all one word on Etsy.com. Buy any ring above $100 and you'll get a matching band for just $1. Perfect for yourself or as a gift. Moissanite Rings Co. on Etsy.com. Start shopping right now. Want to know where all the bodies are buried? Author Robert Allen Miltenberg holds the key to that question in his book, Pool Boy to the Mob, Everybody Out of the Pool. Author Robert Allen Miltenberg holds the key to that question in his book, Pool Boy to the Mob. Welcome to Mob-Ammy Beach. This book is a fictionalized account of Miltenberg working at a mob-owned Miami Beach hotel in the 70s. If you're a fan of The Godfather, Goodfellas, or The Sopranos, you will love this story that's full of colorful characters and wisecracking wise guys. It's a story with everything from Playboy bunnies and weaponized parrots to shattering the glass ceiling and getting away with murder, all in paradise. This is a wise guy tale you've never heard. Surrounded by pools, the trick for Bobby Moskowitz was not slipping in the one thicker than water. Bobby lived to tell the tales, and now you can read all about it. The funniest mob novel since Jimmy Breslin's The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight. Pool Boy to the Mob, Everybody Out of the Pool, from author Robert Allen Miltenberg, available on Amazon. Order your copy right now. Are you looking for a book about real lives and real people? A book that will make you laugh, cry, and laugh again? Then order your copy of The Adventures of Harley, Not Davidson, from author Harley Angel, available on Audible, narrated by James Pryor. The Adventures of Harley, Not Davidson is a memoir that's filled with fun, danger, motorcycle gangs, and even a first kiss. Join Harley on his adventure and experience all the things he's been through in his 50 years, living between motorcycle gangs, violence, as well as his first crush, and being a witness to something he wishes he never would have seen. The Adventures of Harley, Not Davidson, from author Harley Angel, is available on Audible, narrated by James Pryor. It is perfect to listen to on your way to or home from work. Order your copy right now. What would you do if you woke up in a place that was heavily alien and you had no idea how you got there? In the book from author M.K. Hussein, Fabric, Day One, Origins Unknown, available on Amazon, meet Max, who wakes up suddenly to find he's prisoner in a maximum security facility. He doesn't remember much, not even his name or why he's been detained. Somehow, he manages to escape the wretched place only to discover something far worse. The world is not how he remembers it before he had awakened. The past, present, and future have somehow collided into one. Nothing is the same as it was before. Trapped on this new world, he finds out he only has 3 days to live and only 3 days to find a cure. He has to walk through a mystical door that has only room for one. The only problem is he's not the only prisoner on the planet. What happens next? Find out when you read Fabric, Day One, Origins Unknown, from author M.K. Hussein, available on Amazon in Kindle and paperback.
You are listening to The Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at BrianCraigShow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. All right, now listen to this. A former spy, his name is Sam Faddis, Faddis. Listen to this. This is in the Gateway Pundit. A former spy, Sam, I guess it's Faddis, says that Joe Biden is a controlled asset of the Chinese Communist Party. Listen to this. Just before the 2020 election, 51 former intelligence officials falsely claimed that Hunter Biden's laptop was a Russian disinformation operation. Now, see, this is some of the people like, what are we going to get out of the Twitter files, other than satisfaction? This is coming out of the Twitter files. Just before the 2020 election, 51 former intelligence officials falsely claimed that Hunter Biden's laptop was a Russian disinformation operation. Thanks to Elon Musk, we now know that Twitter colluded with Joe Biden's campaign, the Democratic Party, the mainstream media, and the FBI to prevent Americans from learning the truth, namely that the Democrats' presidential nominee and his family had knowingly taken millions of dollars from Chinese intelligence officers. This is what one of the many things that came out of the laptop, right?
Yes.
A patriotic former U.S. spy named Sam Faddis, who they have in quotation, so I don't know if that's his real name, who recruited and ran foreign agents for America for many years, is convinced that as a result of this collective betrayal of the public trust, that Joe Biden is a controlled asset of Chinese intelligence. The new House of Representatives must make exposing and evaluate the potentially catastrophic national security repercussions of such a dangerous penetration and taking corrective action as its first order of business. And he is convinced. And, the thing about Joe Biden, I believe that's true, by the way. One of the things about security clearances, until rather recently, if you were gay, you could not get a top secret security clearance with the government. Mm-hmm. And the reason that was, it wasn't that they were homophobic, the government. Maybe they were, but that wasn't the reason. The reason that gays couldn't get security clearances is because they believed that being gay opened them up to being blackmailed. I had a friend who got a job with the TSA when they first started the TSA.
Oh yeah, I remember.
He was in the first batch of TSA agents
when they first started that whole
yeah, and he was a TSA agent for a few years, and he went through security background checks and everything. And then a higher level position came up, and they did a deeper background check on him, and he had a bunch of credit card debt. I can't remember the exact amount, but he had a bunch of credit card debt. Not only did they not give him the position, they terminated him from the TSA at the time. Now, this was years ago. Maybe they have different rules now. They terminated him from the TSA. They said he had reached a certain threshold of debt on his credit card that opened him up to being bribed.
Did they always look into your credit before the internet? Did employers?
I don't know.
I don't know how they could. I mean, I applied for many jobs. I never had anybody say, "What's your credit score?" It's with the internet, they can look into anything now. It's crazy.
So I don't know. But so, people don't get security clearances because there's the possibility that they could be bribed or blackmailed or they're compromised. And you look at Joe Biden, just based on the condition of his son, is open to so much blackmail and bribery possibilities. He loves his son. Joe Biden. Well, I know it's hard to say that sometimes because of the way he treats Hunter, and Hunter certainly doesn't feel loved. He feels abused and taken advantage of by his father if you read his writings from the laptop and all that. But Joe Biden, he loves his kids, especially Beau Biden, because he's always talking about Beau Biden. But he loves his kids, and he would do, I think, a lot for his kids. And I'm not saying this in a complimentary way, like, well, yeah, he's a asset of the CCP, but he's doing it for good reason. I don't think Joe mind. I think Joe believes that taking bribes and backroom deals and getting rich off of your public office is just how it's done. And
Brian, he's been in Washington for decades. This is all he knows. This is really his reality. Right. And everybody does it, so why not him? I mean, That's right. How they see it. Like when Hillary was having all these issues, I know her thinking was, well, why are they picking on me? This is, or with Bill, with Monica, everybody screws around. All these guys cheat on their wives. Why are they picking on us?
Yeah.
It's a corrupt place full of corrupt people. And I think it's his normal. And I think you're right. He doesn't see anything wrong with it. And people rationalize the whole new saying is my reality. People live in their own reality, my truth. They rationalize everything, and you can convince yourself of a hell of a lot.
You sure can.
And you can convince yourself that what you're doing is not corrupt at all because the ends justifies the means. Well, I'm taking this money or I'm making this deal, but it's better for the environment. It's better in the long run, so it's okay with me. I mean, everybody does that on some level, rationalizes behavior. That's human nature, but they do it on a much grander scale that affects everybody.
That's right. In fact, Craig Kelly on Newsmax TV has done a lot of great reporting on Joe Biden, where Joe Biden in his early days in Washington gave interviews and talked about that first thing he did when he got to the Senate was go up to the guys and ask them to open the books and let him in on the backroom deals. And they said, you haven't been here long enough yet. You got to be here a little while longer. Then they open up the book.
Well, then, like you always said, he went into politics as a corrupt person.
Yeah, he is.
Which is true.
He's criminally insane. If you go into like a high crime neighborhood anywhere in America and somebody robs you, they rob you in that neighborhood. The way that criminals think, okay, like say this crime wave in New York, okay, I'm in New York and I get mugged. these people that are criminals,
Yeah.
they think you have their money.
Didn't something like that happen to you? You told me a story. Somebody stole something you knew, and they said, "Well, that's mine."
Yeah.
And you're right. They rationalize it. And what he would rationalize it is, I'm in charge of the country. I'm doing all this stuff. It's kind of like the offsetting. Well, I'm doing all this, which is good in my mind. So it's okay if I take a little. But, like you said, he went into politics
Criminals
as a corrupt person.
Well,
some people go into politics good
That's
and they
right.
get corrupted. He was corrupt to begin with.
Correct.
So I don't know if
Correct.
he rationalizes anything or if he's just pure evil.
The point I'm making, what happened, what Kathy was referencing, when I was in school, I had this fancy pen.
Yeah, I remember this story.
And this kid stole my pen.
Yeah.
And I got it back from him, and it wasn't easy. I had to go to the teacher and everything. I was a little kid. And he said to me, he accused me of taking his pen. He actually thought that because he was in possession of it, it was his. So the point of this is
exactly that's the criminal mindset, as they call it, which Joe Biden clearly has.
Yeah, the point I'm making here is that criminals like Joe Biden don't know that they're criminals. They don't think themselves as criminals, and I know that's hard to believe and understand, and it's a little bit cerebral and everything. But Joe Biden doesn't believe he's a criminal. This is just how the government works. Right. And, it's
he's just part of the cog. The cogs, and they're all like this, and he's just one cog in the machine.
Well, I was talking about this on the radio today, right at the end of the show, and there's been a lot of presidents in our lifetime, and there's been great presidents like Donald Trump. There's been good presidents, and there's been scummy presidents and bad presidents.
That's for sure.
But I've never, in my lifetime, we've never had a president in my lifetime, and I guess the first president of my lifetime in Kathy's would have been Richard Nixon, right? Because Richard Nixon was president when we were both born.
When was he elected? In
1968, and then reelected in 72.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
But so, we got, and these are just our lifetime.
Right.
There's been good presidents and bad presidents and great presidents in that time. But Joe Biden is the sleaziest, most corrupt of all of them. And I had this audio I played at the end of the radio show this morning. Roger Stone was talking about this cloud, this evil cloud over the White House that's like a portal into some evil place. And a lot of people have been talking about seeing this cloud over the White House of evil. There is some of these past presidents have done terrible things. Mm-hmm. Okay. Bill Clinton was a sleazeball with the ladies. We got that, right? He committed violence against women, bloodied lips, raped Juanita Broderick, and did a lot of sleazy things too. George W. Bush and Dick Cheney were evil. Yeah. I'll give them that because they're war criminals. I mean, they how many people are dead because of their lies of WMDs, and they just don't give
Thousands.
a darn.
Or maimed.
So they're evil. They're evil.
But they would never see it that way. They would never see it that way.
But here's the difference between them and Biden. George W. Bush had his way paved for him by his father, who was very well connected. He had been president, vice president, head of all these agencies. Excuse me, guys. So he had his way paved for him.
Right.
And, so it was a little different thing. Joe Biden, there has not been a moment in his public life that he has not been involved in scandal. From being busted with the plagiarism, saying racist things about people that work at convenience stores.
Yet he's in the White House.
Yeah, exactly. He was
crazy.
He was accused of a very violent sexual assault against Tara Reid in the hallways of the Senate, and all these things. And he gets a total free pass all the way. Exactly. And what's happened with Biden, because he's gotten away with things his whole career in Washington, and he gets elected and reelected, that he's gotten worse and worse over the years.
He's been enabled. Mm-hmm. Well, he's an enabler, and people enable him. I mean, that's how it is. He enables his drug-addicted son, and Washington has enabled Joe Biden. Joe Biden, his wife, clearly can't stand him. I mean, when you see them together, you could tell she's done with him. She's just like so done with this guy. I wonder if she's going to write a book like Barbara Bush talking about all the now that would be a good book, talking about all the sleazy things. Now, Barbara Bush, I didn't read her book, but she did say that her husband was having a long affair. I'm sure he had many.
Yeah.
With one particular woman that she knew about, and she didn't want her book published till after they were both gone. I don't know what that solves, but it's still out there. But I wonder if Jill Biden would ever write a book, because I'm sure she has a lot of stories to tell. But she is only politicians' wives rarely leave because the lifestyle is too good to pass up. The money and the power, and you're hanging out with celebrities, and if they walk away from their husband, some other woman's going to step in, or vice versa. If with a man and a woman. But like I said, Washington enables him. They tolerate it. The media enables Joe, and like he enables his son. So it's a very sick codependent relationship.
Jill Biden is as scummy as her husband.
I'm sure,
and she's involved in all of his scumminess. And
so you think she'll just won't say a word?
Well, look how they met. When they met,
yeah, that's true.
She was married to his best friend, and she started sleeping with Joe Biden, and her husband found out she was sleeping with Joe Biden because Joe Biden crashed the convertible that he had bought his wife, Jill. So she's just as scummy as he is. Now, I want to mention something about
probably true.
Grant Wall. All right, Grant Wall. He's the gay journalist American who died at the World Cup under mysterious circumstances.
Oh yes.
And a lot of stories are coming out. And I'm not going to go through the whole story because you guys know the story. But I just want to say this. If they killed him, my goodness, what a terrible thing.
That's what his brother thinks.
But here's the thing. Okay, and I'm not justifying it because he was an American, and it's outrageous, and you cannot be a gay activist in Muslim countries, and in this country,
that's for sure, they don't tolerate that
in this
all.
country. Millennials and Generation Z Zoomers, they travel abroad and they think they're in America. Like during the World Economic Forum in Switzerland, Jack Posobiec and a group of young MAGA conservatives went over there to Davos, and he was there with Savannah Hernandez, who's big. She does stuff with The Blaze and Turning Point, Jack Posobiec, and some others. And you may remember this. You may have seen this. And these young conservative millennials and Zoomers were filming things outside on the sidewalk. And the World Economic Forum police came.
I remember that.
And some Swiss detectives. And this lady, Swiss detective, said, delete your footage. And I remember watching Posobiec and Savannah Hernandez said, well, we're on a public street. And she says, in Switzerland, you must have someone's permission to film them even on, and they couldn't, America is the freest country in the world. It's the greatest country in the world. And when you travel to other countries, like you go to the World Economic Forum, Europe's not free like here.
No.
You go to the Muslim world, you cannot be a gay activist by wearing rainbow stuff and doing all of that when you're in these Muslim countries.
No, because they see that as total disrespect. I don't know what happened, and I'm not justifying I don't know what.
Oh, gosh, no.
I don't know anything about that.
No, but come on.
But when you go to another country, you have to respect their laws and not try to be an agitator. And
you're not going to win.
Huh?
You're not going to win.
No, I mean, they're not going to change their laws for you. I remember when I realized this when I was in Europe and I was on a train from Italy to France. And in the middle of the night, we went through Switzerland I guess we went through the Swiss Alps. And we were in a little car it was with me, two of my friends, and this French guy was there with us, which was really weird because he didn't speak any English. And in the middle of the night, they stopped the train. We had to give our passports. You have to give your passports to them when you get on the train, which was weird. But that's how they do it. In the middle of the night, the train stops. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. We're all asleep because it was like a 14-hour thing. They opened the door, and there's like 8 Swiss policemen at our door. My heart just dropped. And they took the guy in our car, and they pulled him out, and we never saw him again. And my friends and I were like, oh my gosh. And I asked my cousin who lived in France at the time about that. And she said, that's how it is here. She said, it's not like America. And she's Canadian. And she said, they got your passport and they go through the passports. And I don't know what this guy's deal was. And she said, if they see anything suspicious, I don't know if that's happened. Of course, you're not, but you're traveling between countries there. So it's a little different. Maybe not so much now. But that's when I realized you're not in Kansas anymore. When you're in a foreign country, you think you're on vacation. You think you're having fun and a good time. It is not America. And people that are here, especially these anti-American activists like Brittany Griner, they don't realize how lucky they are.
That's right.
If she was in an airport here and had that vape, they would do nothing, especially because she's a celebrity. They would have just given it back to her. Okay, go home. Have a nice Merry Christmas. It's different here. And people that are here, all they do is bitch and complain about America. This is the freest country in the world, and you don't realize it. And these people don't realize it, and they never stop. It really aggravates me because they really don't realize how free. They don't appreciate it.
And these other, and in particular, this thing at the World Cup, they don't have a Bill of Rights in the Middle East.
It's
in
not
Muslim
like
countries.
Here where you have your rights as a citizen.
You don't have rights to wear what you want to wear.
No.
Or say what you want to say, even if you're an American citizen. And I'm not saying that if they kill this guy, he does. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that when you're traveling, you've got to play smart. I saw another story. There's this woman at the World Cup who's like one of these Instagram bimbos, and she's wearing all this revealing clothing, and they've told her, no, don't do it.
In Muslim countries, they don't.
She could find herself in prison for the rest of her life.
They'll arrest you for kissing somebody in public in some of these places.
And
they have their laws.
The arrogance of the millennials and the Zoomers when they travel abroad, and they think this country has problems. They're just spoiled.
I think, and I don't know too much about the Muslim religion, but I think in those countries, a lot of their laws are tied up with their religion.
Right. That's right. Listen, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Are you drowning in a sea of high price tags while you search for that perfect ring? Have her swimming in compliments with a moissanite diamond ring from Flock's Jewelry on Etsy. That's all one word. Flock's Jewelry carry breathtaking jewelry that won't break the bank. Dazzle and wow with rings guaranteed to take your breath away. Perfect for weddings, engagements, and anniversary gifts. They're also perfect for the holidays. Everything is handmade with customized engraving. Flock's Jewelry on Etsy is stocked with endless options, ensuring you'll find the perfect ring for that special someone. And now, timeless, elegant beauty is accessible for everyone with easy payment plans and lightning fast shipping. Show your love with a ring from Flock's Jewelry on Etsy. Visit now and enjoy their special 25% off sale with free shipping in the United States and United Kingdom. Flock's Jewelry, that's all one word, on Etsy.com. What makes you who you are? Is it nature? Is it nurture? Or is it a mix of the two? The podcast, Nature or Nurture, with host Sam Peterson, is a weekly program available on Apple Podcast. Host Sam Peterson interviews fascinating people on the key milestones that made them who they are today. He interviews writers, comedians, actors, authors, broadcasters, and more. Find out more about these fascinating people, and maybe you'll learn a little something about yourself while listening. Add Nature or Nurture with host Sam Peterson to your podcast playlist right now. Available on Apple Podcast. Hey, Gen Xers, there's a hilarious podcast you will want to add to your playlist. Controversy with Bert and Augie, available on your favorite podcast platform. Brought to you by host Bert and Augie. Listen along to their humorous talks about politics, world news, pop culture, and everything in between. It's a podcast about everything made to upset you, and they'll give you financial tips as well as talk about what's going on in the world through the eyes of Gen Xers. Get ready for no BS talks about anything and everything about how the world is going crazy. Controversy with Bert and Augie is a show that will have you laughing along with every episode as you listen to their commentary. Tune into Controversy with Bert and Augie, available on Spotify and your favorite podcast platform. Start listening right now. From author J.C. Finnegan comes your next must-read book, The Divided Stories of America, The Green Forest, available on Amazon. Have you ever thought, what if the United States of America were no longer united? That's the premise of The Divided Stories of America, which chronicles a scenario in which divergent political ideologies have finally splintered the greatest country the world has ever known. In the aftermath of the national divorce, the present is grim, and the past has been labeled a dangerous conspiracy theory. With truth existing only as a fading memory, Finn struggles to convince his girlfriend of the importance of freedom while holding out hope that it still can be found somewhere. Finn encounters two people from his past whose revelations are the catalyst for a plan that could cause the ruling elite to strip Finn of everything. What happens next? Find out and discover if he chooses the assurance of safety and security over truth, freedom, and love. And order your copy of The Divided Stories of America, The Green Forest, from author J.C. Finnegan, available in Kindle and paperback on Amazon.
You are listening to The Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at briancraigshow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. You know, the year's coming to a close, and I want to thank everyone who supports this program over the years and is with us and is there on our live streams and our premieres, follows us on all of the different podcast platforms. And I want to particularly thank our Patreon supporters. You know, you guys, you're with us, you help us a lot, and your support is greatly appreciated. And if you would like to become a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the episode description to our Patreon page. There's also a link on my website, briancraigshow.com, that'll take you directly to my Patreon page. And our top Patreon supporters get a live on-air thank you shout-out on each and every episode. So the names you will hear now are our top Patreon supporters. I want to thank Andrew and Connie, Christine, Gary, ETW, Chuck, D, Pamela, Rick, Nick, Wesley, Macho, and Rome, Wisconsin. These are our top Patreon supporters. Thank you all for your support. So Merrick Garland put this new special counsel to investigate Trump, right? You've heard about this Jack Smith. Imagine, guy's been president only one term. He's been out of office 2 years, and they got a special counsel investigating him. Have any of you heard of a special counselor being appointed to investigate a president 2 years after they leave office? Listen to this. And remember, this guy's wife worked on the Michelle Obama documentary, right? Can you imagine?
How many special counsels have they sent to look into Trump? How many investigations now?
I don't know.
Has it been?
Pretty tough to count.
A baker's dozen? I mean, it's getting up there.
Listen to this.
And nothing's coming of it either.
Special counsel Jack Smith's team of lawyers, because, special counsel, he's got an office, he's got a team to investigate Trump for, I really don't understand. Listen to this. Special counsel Jack Smith's team of lawyers is twice the size of Mueller's team.
Boy.
Yeah, Mueller had a team of a dozen Democrat and Hillary Clinton donors that were investigating Trump for 2 years. Smith, who was tied closely to the Obamas, has more than 20 lawyers that'll be, I guess, harassing Trump.
What is he looking into exactly? I forgot. There's so many investigations. Which one is this about?
I don't know, Kathy. I don't know. It's what they all are. President Trump's never done anything wrong about.
It's a fishing expedition.
Any investigation they have had, he's been cleared. But
meanwhile, we're paying for all this.
Why does he have to have a team that's twice the size of Mueller? I mean, this is crazy. Now,
I guess they figured double the brain power. Double the idiots.
I don't know. Now, Boebert, I'm watching the media, okay? So Boebert won by around 500 and something votes.
No, that's pretty close.
And they're saying it's pretty close and it's over, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Remember, George W. Bush won the presidency by 150 votes. And he won in Florida. He won the whole presidency of the United States on about 150 votes. So I think Lauren Boebert did a little bit better than that when it's only one small congressional district. a lot of these House races are won by just a few hundred votes like this. This is not unusual. And, because the media want to say that MAGA's over and all of this and cut it tight. I would rather it be more than 500 votes. But this is very normal, and it's much more than Bush won the whole presidency with in 2000. So I would not say this has any comment on the stability of the MAGA movement at all.
No, not at all. But I will say this. Tucker Carlson did a podcast today. He had Tulsi Gabbard on.
I didn't know we did a podcast.
Yeah. And he said that, he worked for CNN for 9 years, and he had his show with his bow tie. And he said that CNN is collapsing. He said that even the changes, which to me have not been significant enough, that Chris Licht is, I don't know why they're so afraid to fire these people that are on the air. I mean, what is the holdup here? But he said, they fired a bunch of underlings and a bunch of behind the scenes people. And Tucker Carlson said the network's, it's collapsing in itself, and nobody watches it. They could easily make that channel relevant in a week.
CNN.
I could do it. Brian could do it. Most of us could do it. And he said that they're trying to get it back to what it was when he was on it. But he said that's not going to happen. Here's what they need to do, okay? They need to fire everybody across the board. Fire everybody that's on the air, pretty much 90%. They all suck. Nobody likes them. And just boom, get rid of them all. They need to hire a few faces that you recognize from other networks. You know who I would hire? Trace Gallagher. I'd give him a sweet deal.
On CNN?
On CNN. He's good. He's well known. He's a real journalist. I like him. But they have to change the tone of the network. They have to change. It's not enough to change the people. They have to go strict news and stop bashing Trump. And they don't have to be right or left. They could be more news focused. And I think they should hire him. They could hire a lot of people, maybe Shepard Smith. I know a lot of people don't like Shepard Smith, but Shepard Smith once upon a time was a good journalist. He's from our area, and we grew up watching him. If they changed the tone of the network and stopped with the constant Trump bashing and got all new faces in there and then brought in some new people, from maybe their affiliates, they could make some significant improvements. And I would bring back a Larry King style show. I've said this before, with Ryan Seacrest or somebody who's really good at interviewing people, and bring back that 8 o'clock to go against Tucker, that 8 o'clock interview show and interview they tried it with Piers Morgan, but Piers Morgan, his show would have done well, but he screwed up going after the gun issue. Yeah. And that's what did him in.
That's true.
If he had never done that, I believe his show would still be on the air today because he's really good. Now, they can bring him back, but he can't control himself. He has obsessions that like Meghan Markle, he's obsessed with her, and he's obsessed with the gun issue, and he can't seem to let those go. But I think they could turn that network around. Those are just my ideas. I'd bring back an interview Larry King style show with a good person, and I would hire some people from different networks that are likable. Trace Gallagher is a likable guy. You know what I mean? He's not somebody that's controversial. Don't you think? I like him. He's well liked. He's not somebody that you're like Dana Perino. I can't stand her. A lot of people like her. I don't. But I think Trace Gallagher type. Now, Shepard Smith might be controversial, but they could bring in faces and bring in some new people that are new faces that are from affiliates up and coming. They could turn that thing around so fast. I don't know why they don't fire these people.
The thing about CNN, there's a lot of problems.
Get rid of Don Lemon and Jay
There's
Tapper.
A lot of problems with CNN.
Oh, many.
There is not a single person that should not be fired from CNN.
I agree.
And that goes off the air too.
But Anderson Cooper's got to go.
But you know what happened? A lot of bad things happened with CNN. And CNN went through a big change a number of years ago. CNN is based primarily out of New York City, and some of it's in D.C. And if you remember the way that it used to be at CNN, it was out of Atlanta, Georgia.
That's right.
Because
Bill Hemmer worked there.
That's where Ted Turner was at. And I took a tour with your mother, Kathy, my mother-in-law. We took a tour of CNN studios in Atlanta. Yeah. And it was
actually, get out of New York, maybe.
It was pretty cool. They would take you into the studios while they were on the air. You would watch them doing the newscast.
Yeah.
And being in Atlanta and away from the New York City, Washington, D.C. locations, they had better news and better content because they weren't in that Washington bubble or that New York snob liberal bubble. And they were better then. And I don't know if they even do anything in Atlanta anymore. If they do, it's minimal. But that was a big thing. And if I were running CNN, this is what I would do. I wouldn't have it so politically focused.
No.
I would have them doing a lot more
true crime
stuff, crime stories.
True crime.
And I would
they could hire Nancy Grace.
And when
she'd be huge.
When CNN was new, you didn't know who these people were. They were not famous people. A lot of them who were unknowns. You bring in people from the local news, get more into crime stories because there's a lot going on with that. Close down the studio and there is no reason for CNN to have a New York studio, period. That should be closed.
Completely retool the network and set a new standard.
Get back to Atlanta.
Set a new standard. They set the standard in the very beginning. They were the first ones to do the 24-hour. And I remember when they started, I remember I was like in middle school or something. And of course, I wasn't into the news back then, but I remember thinking, my God, how boring. Who's going to watch the news 24 hours? But it was a big hit. And many people came and modeled themselves after this. They need to start fresh, bring in all new people. I bet they could get some Fox personalities if they offer Megyn Kelly. I bet she would be good. If she wants it, they could give her an 8 o'clock slot.
The thing with CNN,
9 o'clock. Her show's really good on YouTube.
And I don't know when this transition happened, when they got out of Atlanta. And I'm sure they still do some things there.
I don't know.
But I can't remember the last time I've watched CNN and they said, oh, we're in Atlanta. When they got in New York and D.C., they got taken over by the deep state, Washington, New York elite media. And it totally changed CNN, and it's become really a poisonous
change
place.
Location. What about Los Angeles?
MSNBC, when it was new, was also similar. Right now, MSNBC is mostly based in New York and D.C.
They're all there.
In the beginning, it wasn't in New York. It was in Jersey. And it was kind of out of the city. I know that's close, but it was out of the city. Yeah. And once they got in the city and then got so Washington-centric, the deep state moved in and took it over. I think
you're right. I think changing location would be important, but I don't know. So what's going to happen if Tucker says the network is collapsing? What would that mean? Is it going to get bought out? It just got bought out. So this guy clearly is not making aggressive enough changes to make a difference. He's got to go in there and really be more aggressive and get rid of some of these on-air people. But what does that mean if the network is collapsing? If it's no longer financially viable, what does it just go away? Does somebody else come in and buy? It just got bought out.
This is the two things. First, like I said, I would get away from doing what they're doing because what's happened.
Well, clearly, it's not working.
What's happened with news? And this goes for all of the news. This goes for Newsmax and Fox too. They don't report the news; they just talk about the news. Okay,
they get everything from the Daily Mail, and then they just regurgitate it.
And what the media are doing on all the cable news networks, they're not reporting any news. No. They're just talking about the news.
They plagiarize each other.
It's a talk show.
That's exactly
right. It's a talk show now.
It's like
not
The View
news.
24/7.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think the CNN brand is so damaged that it cannot be fixed.
That's what he's saying.
So
in this article here.
They need to just drop it. It's just over. CNN is over. Everyone needs.
What do you mean? It just got bought out.
The name's no good anymore.
You think so? You think a total rebranding, changing of the name, changing of the guard, everything.
Yes,
is the only thing that can save.
Yeah, it's too damaged.
Even the name is tainted.
You know what it's like?
It's kind of a dated name too. Cable. Does anybody even say cable anymore?
Isn't
it Cable News Network?
Yeah,
does anybody say cable anymore?
It's Cable News Network.
But is that a term people use?
In the 90s, there was a plane crash, and I can't remember what the airline was. The one that crashed in the Everglades.
Oh yeah, the ValueJet.
ValueJet. Okay, ValueJet.
That was scary.
ValueJet had a crash here in our area in the Florida Everglades,
right near our house.
Mm-hmm. And when they started flying again, the airline changed its name.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
they changed the name because the brand was so connected with the plane crash that the airline couldn't exist with that name.
Right.
Now, other airlines that are famous have had plane crashes and didn't change their name, but they just could not continue, so they changed their name.
Yeah.
And that's what's got to happen with CNN. They got to fire everyone, get into some new studios in a new city.
I think you're right.
And change the name.
I think I never thought about changing the name, but I think it's obsolete anyway, or change what the C stands for. But I guess the CNN is so well known. I don't know. They've been around for so long, almost 40 years now, pretty much been around 40 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the longest 24-hour cable, or news channel. Yeah. But he said the network's dying. I agree with him on that. Yeah. And Fox is just killing it. I don't understand. I really thought this guy, Chris Licht, was going to come in and completely change things very quickly, because usually that's what happens. It's like boom. Yeah. But he's still got the same jerks on the air. Yeah. Firing the staff behind the scenes.
He did get rid of Brian Stelter.
Well, that's one good thing.
That was good.
That's a good one. But he shouldn't have stopped there. And firing people behind the scenes, what's that going to do? It's the on-air people that people connect with or don't connect with. They're the ones that need to be changed.
Yeah, I don't think CNN can be fixed, and that's just the way it is. And I'll tell you another thing too.
It's interesting to see how it's collapsed because of Trump. It's just totally collapsed.
So far as the cable news goes, to me, and this is just me, but it is the television news is at such a slow pace that I can't be interested in it. I just can't get interested in the television news unless there's a breaking news story somewhere, and I'll turn it on because I want images. I want to know what's going, like the Boston Marathon disaster tragedy. You'll turn it on for that because it's breaking. It's right there. You want the visuals, but but the cable news is just too slow for me.
We're used to a faster turnaround. They can't keep up with how fast the news is breaking, but at the same time,
that's right.
They will get on a topic and they will talk about it for weeks and weeks without discussing anything else. I don't understand why they do that either. Are they just milking something like, okay, everybody, we're keeping I think it goes a lot with how their retention. So if they're talking about something, say this FTX thing, and they're crunching the numbers, okay, we have a good audience retention, our numbers are good, let's stick with this. They don't like to change stories as long as they're going to milk it as long as they can. That's how I think networks work. And as soon as the audience starts to wane and the viewership okay, they're bored with this one, let's go move on to the next. And they milk it dry. You know what I mean? And you're right. With social media, people are so used to TikTok where you're scrolling and it's like 30 seconds of information and our attention spans are shot. That's for sure.
Like
social media.
Okay, I give an example of a big story in the last couple of years where the cable news couldn't keep up and know what was going on. During the Capitol breach, and Kathy and I were here at home, and the TV news had very little. We were getting on Twitter, people tweeting from inside the Capitol were on Twitter.
Yes.
And we saw the Viking
in real time.
The shaman. I was like, what is this idiot all about? And the media couldn't keep up with that. In fact, that's why there's so much blame put on Trump with the Capitol breach, because the news media couldn't keep up with the social media on that, and the White House flow of information is slower than even the even social media could possibly have. So the cable news is just out of date.
Another thing is you have these internet sleuths, and this is really big on TikTok, and it's becoming a big thing. And you see this going on with these Idaho murders. These internet sleuths, these amateur detectives on TikTok are solving crimes faster than the cops. And they're reporting things that the news isn't reporting. They're getting information quicker than the news because people that have the information are turning to other outlets to get the word out there. You know what I'm saying? So if you have there's people on TikTok that have channels that are strictly true crime. You have podcasts that are true crime. If you have a true crime podcast that's super popular, or you have a TikTok that has a lot of followers, like 500,000 or a couple million, and then you have a family member, like in Idaho, the father who's doing a lot of publicity and interviews, and you're going to the media and they're not covering what you want right at that moment, you're going to go to this person who has this podcast or this internet amateur sleuth on TikTok, and you're going to go to them with your information. And that's what's happening. The news is becoming obsolete.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we will talk to you next time.
Do you ever think that your life needs a spiritual upgrade? The book, Lord, I Need an Upgrade, from author Lydia K. Atube, offers 16 weeks of Bible scriptures and inspirational messages to help you in rising higher in your faith walk with God. This prayer journal has been set up in a weekly format with short inspirational messages, scriptures to guide you as you travel this road of faith and victory in Jesus, and an area to write your favorite praise songs, dreams, and visions received. Lord, I Need an Upgrade includes weekly messages, scriptures to meditate on, and the theme of praise is carried throughout the book as prayer points. Reflection portions are also included for each week for a 16-week timeline. If you're looking to get closer to God, this is the perfect book to help you get where you want to be. Lord, I Need an Upgrade, from author Lydia K. Atube, available on Amazon. Order your copy right now.